Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for today's town hall. My name is Amelia Schlossberg, and I work at Vermont Legal Aid. Vermont Legal Aid is a nonprofit law firm, and we help Vermonters with civil legal issues. Civil legal issues include things like healthcare, housing, disability law, elder law, unemployment law, which is what we're talking about today, tax law, and other kinds of law that are not criminal law. Vermont Legal Aid has 5 offices across the state. We help people statewide. And while those buildings are closed right now during the pandemic, we are still giving free confidential help to Vermonters by our phone system and through email. So we are here to help you. And we are also doing these virtual town halls to give some general information about important topics during this pandemic, and also to answer your questions. And I want to note that we have a website. So if you don't see your question answered today, www.vtlawhelp.org has lots of civil legal information. The website is a joint project of Vermont Legal Aid and our partner organization, Legal Services Vermont. The two of us have been working very hard to keep the website updated every day with as new information comes through. So that is another resource that you can use to get questions answered about unemployment and other civil legal issues. Today, I'm joined by attorney Kelli Kazmarski, and I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. I do want to note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available for you to watch again on our Facebook page, and there'll also be a link on our website. And with that, I'll let Kelli introduce herself.
Thanks, Amelia. Good morning, everyone. As Amelia said, my name is Kelli Kazmarski. I'm a staff attorney at Vermont Legal Aid. I work in the St. Johnsbury office of Legal Aid, although I'm, like my colleagues, working from home right now. And I'm a member of the Poverty Law Project at Legal Aid.
Thank you, Kelli. So I want you to know, everyone who's watching live, that you can type your questions into our Q&A question space here. And if you're watching us on Facebook, you can type your questions in the comment section, and Kelli and I will do our best to get to them. So Kelli, and I want to let you know too that if we don't get to your question and you're over 60 years old, we do have a legal clinic coming up for Vermonters that are over 60. That legal clinic is open for questions about unemployment, anything else anyone over 60 has questions about, and you can get a free 20-minute appointment. It's on Wednesday, April 29th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., but we want you to call now in advance to set up that appointment, just to get your name on the list. So our phone number to set up an appointment is 802-318-4169. That's for our legal clinic coming up next week for Vermonters over 60. Okay, so that's the only announcement I have. So Kelli, today we're talking about unemployment benefits. What is unemployment?
So, good place to begin. We've had unemployment insurance since about 1939, and it's a program that is intended to provide short-term assistance for people who have lost their employment through no fault of their own, who are able and available to work and actively looking for work, and also have enough work history or in terms of wages earned to be monetarily eligible for unemployment compensation. So that's traditionally how the program has worked in the past.
Thank you. So Kelli, I know that during the pandemic, there have been a lot of big changes. And one thing you just said, actively looking for work, I know a lot of folks aren't able to do that right now. So can we talk about some of the changes to this law?
Sure. I'd like to start by just talking about 3 basic areas that the federal legislation has changed related to unemployment. There are basically 3 new programs in the federal legislation. The first program, called Pandemic Unemployment Assistance, essentially expands the For example, people who are self-employed, extreme part-time workers, gig workers like people who drove for Uber or had Airbnb places, traditionally they would not be eligible for unemployment, but the new legislation expands the people who are eligible to include those folks now. The second program expands the amount of benefit available and increases money available. $100. And then the third program actually extends the number of weeks that someone would be eligible for unemployment. Typically, it is only for 26 weeks, but now it's been expanded for an additional 13 weeks.
Got it. Thank you, Kelly. So it sounds like the laws have changed how many people are qualifying. So there are more people qualifying for unemployment. They're changing how much money people are qualifying more for. So they're qualifying for more money, and they're changing how long this benefit can last. So it's more time. Is that accurate?
That's right. That's exactly right.
And then what about this piece about not being able to look for work right now?
Right. So along with the new programs, we also have new rules that are in place. And as you mentioned, one of those is that this work search requirement that is typically part of an unemployment benefit has been suspended. So that even if a person was getting unemployment prior to the pandemic, nobody right now has to go out and look for work in order to receive unemployment benefits, partly because of the need to stay at home and not be out doing anything right now. There's some other changes. The biggest one really has to do with the fact that traditionally, if you are not able to work, if you're sick, for example, you would not then be eligible for unemployment compensation. The idea behind unemployment is that it's really for folks who are able to work. If you're not able to work, you should be seeking disability benefits. But the changes in the law now and the changes in the rules state that if someone is sick with the virus or has to stay home really for any reason related to the virus, because they are quarantining, because they have a child home who is out of school, because they need to care for someone else who is sick or at risk of getting sick, all of those reasons now do not disqualify someone for receiving unemployment. And the other big change is that people who typically were not monetarily eligible, in other words, did not have the wage history to qualify for unemployment, they now are eligible under these new rules.
Okay, so it sounds like a lot more people are going to be qualified. You mentioned before people that are self-employed that wouldn't normally qualify, or the contractors that wouldn't normally qualify. And now you've mentioned people that are not able to work because they have to take care of their children because the school is closed, or they're not able to work because they got sick, or they're taking care of someone who is sick, or someone who is working very sort of a smaller amount of time or making less money, normally wouldn't have made enough money to qualify, but now they might. Does that sound right?
That's
okay,
right.
Great.
Yep.
Okay, so how do people get, just sort of generally, how do folks get this benefit?
Okay, so there are two steps usually to obtaining benefits. The first is to apply. Before this crisis, the only way a person could apply was by calling the Department of Labor. And there were about 15 people working the phones, apparently, and accepting those applications. And then we had about 70,000 people apply for benefits during a time when normally about 3,000 people would apply for benefits. So the department has really been just under a tremendous amount of pressure because of this demand. So they've added an online portal for applying. And in fact, they are hourly making changes and updates to that. And just last night, Tuesday night, as promised, the department was hoping to have a new application up and running for the new pandemic unemployment assistance, which we'll get into a little bit more. And they, as promised, have come through with that. And as of last night, There is now the application live for that process. Even prior to last night, there was online a portal for applying for the traditional unemployment compensation program.
So Kelli, you just said that that portal, that the new application for folks that are self-employed that traditionally wouldn't have been qualified for unemployment, that just opened yesterday. So I'm seeing a question here coming in. Can you address how things are rolling out for self-employed people who've been attempting without success to open claims and they haven't been paid for 6 or 7 weeks? So are things changing now for those folks?
Yes. Hopefully things will be changing very quickly now. Now that that application is up and live, it looks like there is a two-step process. If a person goes to the Department of Labor website, on the front page, there is actually a link to take you to the application for this pandemic unemployment assistance. And the first step is the question is asked, have you already applied? Because some folks who are self-employed, for example, went online maybe last week, filled out an application, and they probably received some sort of a denial saying that they were not eligible for unemployment. And that is because they would not be eligible under the traditional program. But now with the new application live, the information, if a person has already applied, that information will be transferred to the new application. If a person is self-employed or one of the other people who fall into the PUA category, and they have not yet applied, then they will need to begin by applying for the traditional unemployment comp, and they will then be directed towards the proper application for the pandemic unemployment assistance.
Thank you, Kelli. So another quick question that really ties into what we were just talking about in one of those 3 big changes. This person says, if a person exhausted their 26 weeks of unemployment last November, would they be able to get unemployment now?
Yes, they should be able to reopen that claim and apply for and receive the additional 13 weeks of benefits that are now available to them.
Great. Okay. Thanks. So any other big changes or things folks should know about applying for unemployment right now?
I think the thing about applying, there is a phone number that people also could use to apply. The department is really swamped with demand for phone calls right now, as folks I'm sure are well aware who are watching this. It's very difficult to get through by phone. So we recommend that people try to apply online whenever possible. That seems to be the better way to get through at this point. And then there is the weekly claim certification process that also has to happen once the application is completed. And that is something that also can be done online or by phone. But again, I think the recommendation is to try to do whatever you can online, since the phones are really swamped right now.
Got it. Thank you. So Kelli, just on that piece there's a question here. Is there a plan to improve the application and response process? The challenge that my patients are facing is that they have applied online, but the system, quote, can't find their application, or they've called 2,000 times, literally 2,000 times without any success.
Yeah, I've heard lots of stories like this, and I can't imagine how frustrating that must be for people. And I'm sorry to hear about really that failure of our Department of Labor, unfortunately, to accommodate. But also, it would have been hard to anticipate this kind of a flood of phone calls and demand. But there have been many error messages coming up about claims not found, Social Security numbers not found. The hope is that these problems are going to start disappearing now that there are a significantly higher number of people handling the claims. There have been a whole bunch of new people brought in, and the hope is that people will quickly start to see no wait times when they call. Problems are going to be addressed, because as more people are coming into the Department of Labor to handle the influx of phone calls, the experienced folks can then focus on the cases that have these problems that are in many cases caused by minor data input problems and a really old computer system. Unfortunately, it takes an actual person to go in and manually change the data in order to fix the problem. So they are processing these as quickly as they can, but it still will take a little time. The hope is that all of these changes with more staff being brought in are happening right now. So in the next day or two, and certainly in the next week, people should see things happening quicker, issues being resolved quicker, and be able to get through much more quickly to the department.
Thank you, Kelly. So I'm seeing a couple of questions here about the sort of this who, knowing that more people are qualified. So sort of who might be qualified during the pandemic that wouldn't normally be qualified. So I'm going to give you two examples. So one example, do people who are not working for their very part-time essential job due to fear of getting the virus, could they be eligible?
They could be eligible. It will depend on what the employer has offered in terms of making the environment safe. If an employer is not following guidelines and providing safe workspace for employees, then an employee would definitely have good cause for leaving that job. So it would depend somewhat on the facts of the situation, but generally speaking, if a person felt that they were at risk because of their employment environment, they would likely be covered and be able to obtain some unemployment.
And Kelly, as a non-attorney, I can hear a legal phrase when I hear one. So you said good cause, and is that usually the Department of Labor that's determining if it's good cause, or is that just me saying, you know, I think it's probably good enough? Or do you just apply anyway?
It is the Department of Labor that decides whether there is good cause. I think that if a person feels that they had to leave their job because of the virus, there is no harm in applying for unemployment. There might be an issue that they would have to discuss with a claims adjudicator around whether they had a reasonable belief that they were at risk. And again, that is a legal term that depends on the situation. But I think that if a person feels that they were not safe at work and had to leave work, then they should apply. There's no harm in applying for unemployment.
Thanks, Kelly. So another example here, if you were laid off during the pandemic, but you're asked to come back, but also you have a child, a minor that you're caring for while school is closed, what are your rights in terms of unemployment?
So the new rules do say that if someone has to stay home and cannot work because they need to be home to care for a minor child whose school or daycare is not open because of the virus, then that is something that would qualify someone for unemployment. They would not be disqualified.
Okay. And then what if someone, I just want to add to that, what if someone is in a similar situation, they were laid off because of the pandemic and now their job is asking them to come back, is saying you can come back now. What if they say no? Can they still get unemployment?
Well, I think that will depend on the situation and the reasons why they said no. Generally speaking, when you are on unemployment, if you're offered a job, there's really only very limited reasons you can refuse that job. So I guess I would have to say it would depend on why the person is refusing the job.
Got it. Okay. And if it's because they have a child that they need to take care of or because they're sick, then that makes sense, but it really would depend. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So let's see more questions here. So a question here about the applications. Do you advise calling to follow up on an online application, or should we email any questions to the Department of Labor?
I just was listening to a town hall at the Department of Labor yesterday, and a person from the Unemployment Insurance Division said that they recommend calling. There was a point, I guess, within the last few weeks when they were suggesting that folks try emailing the department, but that has not worked out well. And in fact, I guess created even more of a backlog for them. So as difficult as it is to get through by phone, the department is still recommending that that is the best way to resolve problems or issues. So unfortunately, it's going to require some more patience. And again, though, my understanding is that even as of today, they're bringing more and more people on to handle the phone calls. So hopefully folks will start to see a difference there.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so shifting back to the question, the big change around the amount of money people are getting. So this person asks, does the additional $600 in unemployment benefit also have to be counted as income when applying for programs like SNAP, which is food assistance, or 3 Squares Vermont, or WIC?
Yes, generally speaking, the extra $600 is viewed as income for many other benefit programs like SSI, for example, and 3 Squares. There are some exceptions. I believe Medicaid and HUD, Housing and Urban Development, do not count the extra $600. They do count the amount, the regular unemployment amount that a person is eligible for. But the additional 600 is not counted. And so that will have some impact on other benefits. And it's possible that other benefits like SSI would be reduced or even stop while someone is getting that additional $600 benefit. But the key piece here is that folks should keep everyone informed of that income, whether it's the economic services folks for 3 Squares or Social Security. If someone gets SSI, they should continue to inform those people of the income as it goes up, and especially when it goes back down, so that the benefits that they were getting would go back up again once the unemployment stops.
Got it. Thank you, Kelly. Okay, some more questions about people. So who qualifies, this category of who's going to qualify for this? So one person asks, this is a question from folks watching us on our Facebook Live. My son is in a band, but his tour has been canceled. Can he file for unemployment?
That's an interesting question. And I would say that if he has wage history, work history, if this was a job that was certain, that was there was a contract or something like that, so that it was definitely going to happen and then was canceled due to the virus and was a loss of income because of that, I would say he should be eligible, and I think he should apply.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. How about another similar question? How about an employee? Let's see, does an essential employee who leaves a job to care for an 18-year-old with a disability, does that person meet the unemployment eligibility? So if you're not caring for a small child, but you're caring for an 18-year-old with a disability.
As long as the need to provide the care is related to the virus, then I believe there is not an issue that there should be unemployment coverage. I could see a bit of an issue if a person needed to stay home to care for someone, but somehow that was in no way connected with the virus. There could be an issue there, but I would think that maybe there was someone who is an adult, for example, with an intellectual disability who during the day normally goes to a program, for example, and if that program is canceled and then another family member has to stay home to take care of that adult family member, there'd be no question that that would be covered, because the age of the person wouldn't matter. It's really whether the facility or the place where the person goes is closed due to the virus. And then if someone needs to be home, it would be covered.
So when we say due to this virus, we're talking sort of generally about this pandemic and this crisis is having a lot of ripple effects on people's ability to get the services they usually get. So if the person is getting some other kind of support during the day for their 18-year-old child with a disability or 8-year-old adult with a disability rather, then and if those supports go away because of the pandemic, even if no one's actually gotten sick, that might still count.
That's right.
Great. Thanks, Kelli. Okay, so more questions from Facebook. I've heard that there's an option where people do not have to call in the weekly claim submission. Is this true? And if so, how does someone sign up for that? Oh, I like this question because the benefits that I'm used to working with, health insurance, there's no weekly, like you don't apply for Medicaid every week. And with this unemployment piece, there is sort of a weekly component. So tell me more about that.
Yes, there is. It's part of the federal requirement that in order to receive unemployment, people have to certify each week that they are unemployed, that they're looking for work, that they're able and available to work. Now, of course, the work search, as we said, has been suspended. So there is no requirement right now that folks actually look for work, but they do still need to file those weekly claim certifications. I think the question was about not having to call in. There is an automated weekly claims phone line and people can call in, but there's also a way to file your claims online. And I'm not sure if the person asking the question was aware of that, but you can file your weekly claims online. There is a portal through the Department of Labor website to do that. And again, that is the recommended way at this point, I think, to file those weekly claims. And you do still need to file them to get your retroactive benefits. Many people during the past few weeks were not able to get through to the department or encountered an error online when they were trying to file their weekly claims reports. And the department is making accommodations so that people can go in and backdate weekly claims. Normally you can't do that. And if you miss a week of filing, you miss out on those benefits. But because of what's happened and because the department recognizes its own involvement in the reason people can't get through, it's not the fault of the claimants at all. They are telling everyone that not to worry, you will be able to backdate your claims to the date of separation. So it's just a matter of being patient, unfortunately, to get through and establish your claim. But you will still need to do the weekly claims to get the weekly benefit.
Thank you, Kelli. And so there was a question here, just in terms of folks that are self-employed, do they also have that weekly claim? Or do we know this yet, whether that weekly claim is for folks that are self-employed too? It sounds like there's maybe some things going around that maybe some folks don't have to do the weekly claim. Have we heard of anyone being exempt from that weekly claim yet?
I have not yet. Now, the new pandemic unemployment assistance, which is the program for self-employed, extreme part-time, people who didn't monetarily qualify in the past, that is brand new. And like I said, just went live last night. And from what I saw this morning, it does look like there is a separate weekly certification process for those folks as well. And it looks like there is a series of prompts that will lead you through that once you complete the application process.
Thank you. Okay, so Kelli, we're nearing the end of our 30 minutes, and we have called this a 30-minute town hall. We are going to continue answering questions after the 30 minutes is up, but we'll switch sort of into those individual questions. But I want to get to one more person's really general question here. This person says, can you discuss the $1,200 payment promised by Governor Scott on Sunday for people whose claims have been held up? I'm hearing that some people have not yet received this.
Right. So over the weekend, because the governor was very upset by how many people were not seeing any benefits, he ordered that a certain group of folks, and I think it was around 8,000 people or so, received $1,200 checks, which represents the first 2 weeks of the federal additional $600 benefit that folks would be entitled to. And the state was presuming that these people would be eligible and were just being held up because of these technical glitches, maybe with input of data or computer problems. So they identified a whole bunch of people that they felt probably had very minor issues on their claims and sent those $1,200 checks out. Apparently there are several other people, numbering in the thousands, who have different issues on their claims. For example, an allegation that they quit without cause is different than a mismatch of dates in the system. And those cases that have more significant issues on them have to be investigated. A claims adjudicator has to take a look at them before decisions can be made. Part of the problem is that the federal government is being very strict about the fact that if the state gives out money that it shouldn't have, the state will be in trouble about that. So the state has to be careful in making sure that it gives money to folks who are eligible. And that's why there are still some people who did not get that $1,200 check. They have different issues that the state wasn't able to say, these are minor technical problems. So the hope is that in the coming days, those cases are going to have priority and will get attention, and those issues will also be resolved.
Got it. Thank you, Kelli. So that's fantastic. We've got a bunch more questions that we'll start working on right now. We'll continue answering questions. It sounds like that's kind of the general information. Any other sort of general things that folks should know before we get into these individual questions?
I just wanted to mention, yes, briefly, what to do if there is a problem and you continue to have trouble getting through to the Department of Labor. If folks have received a decision or a determination from the Department of Labor that they do not agree with, they should try to contact the department, because in many cases, those decisions will be changed once somebody actually gets to that claim and can process it. However, it's important to keep in mind that you've got a 30-day window to appeal a decision if you don't agree with it. So if you are getting close to that 30-day deadline and you have not been able to get through to the Department of Labor, you should appeal that decision just to protect and preserve your rights, because the appeal deadline, once it passes, you really can't do anything about a decision that you don't agree with. Now, that there will be some modification of that because of this crisis going on, but in general, folks should keep track of that 30-day deadline. If they're getting close and can't get through and have a decision they do not agree with, they should go ahead and appeal that. And there are instructions on every determination you get from the Department of Labor how to appeal a decision you don't agree with.
And Kelli, when you say determination, do you mean, is that just like the day that you apply, it's 30 days from then, or is it just some kind of letter in the mail that you get? Like, what do you, like, when does the clock start ticking for those 30 days?
Good question. There is a letter that should come in the mail, and it's called an initial determination. That's sort of the caption on the top of it, and there will be a date on there. You'll have 30 days from that date to appeal if you do not agree with the decision that's in there.
Okay, so this is different from folks that are getting some of those technical errors, like we can't find your social security number or your claim isn't found or anything like that. This is a different, This is a more official denial or determination.
That's correct.
Okay, great. And so when folks are looking for support around that, whether it's making an appeal or just getting help with this, I know that we're a resource. So our website, that www.vtlawhelp.org, is one of the best places to look for information because we're updating it every day as things change. Kelli's talked about a lot of changes so far. What are some of the other, so we know that the Department of Labor has a website too, where you can file these claims, but also has some information about technical issues. So you can see you're probably in really good company, and they may have posted some information about what to do for certain technical issues. You were mentioning that they're putting on these webinars or other resources.
Yes, the Department of Labor has been hosting town halls similar to this one, where people can tune in and listen to questions and have their questions answered by various folks within the Department of Labor. I believe there is one this afternoon starting at, I think it's 2 o'clock, and it will be about the pandemic unemployment assistance program and the new application that I was speaking about. So if anyone has questions, they may want to tune in this afternoon. I believe if you go to the Department of Labor website, the homepage, on the right-hand side, there are links to the town hall events, and you can watch and participate if you want.
Fantastic. And I think we can also tell folks that if you can't find an answer on our website, you can also give us a call. And so We have a phone number here. It's 1-800-889-2047. So if you leave a quick voice message there, Vermont Legal Aid or our partner organization, Legal Services Vermont, we're working together to answer these unemployment questions and get you the legal advice that you need to navigate this. So with that said, we've got lots more wonderful questions coming in from Facebook and from folks attending on Zoom here. So let's jump into those. Okay, so let's start. Here's a question. I have a question about unemployment insurance and being self-employed. I filed yesterday and I'm pending due to not having done my 2019 taxes yet. However, I was not self-employed until 2020. I'm afraid I'll be denied based on the 2019 tax information.
That is interesting. Yeah. I would say that this person should go ahead and apply and see. I believe that the issue about income, if somebody hasn't filled in hasn't completed their taxes yet and doesn't have that return to upload, I'm not sure that the department has resolved yet how they're going to assess prior income. So I think that this person should apply. If they are denied and do not agree with that decision, they can always give us a call at Legal Aid and we can help them sort that out.
That sounds great. That sounds like the kind of thing that Legal Services Vermont and Legal Aid might be able to give advice on in more detail. Okay, more questions, similar self-employed situations. So how about a person who is self-employed, that is a farmer, but normally supplements income by substitute teaching? This person lost the teaching income, but not necessarily his farming income.
Oh, that's a very interesting question, because typically the department will look at the number of hours of employment. And once a person is working more than about 35 hours a week, they are not considered unemployed. So for example, someone who works a 40-hour job and then has another part-time job on the side, if that full-time job is ongoing and they lose the part-time job, they would not be able to apply for unemployment for the loss of that additional part-time job because they're still working over 35 hours a week. Now, in this case, the farmer, I'm sure, works way more than 40 hours a week as a farmer, and has lost the substitute teaching job. That's a very interesting situation. And again, I think I would say apply and see what happens. I honestly don't know how that would be treated. And I think it would depend in part on the kind of income the farm has had in the past, but I'm not sure about that. I would say apply. And if you run into problems, give us a call.
Thank you. Okay, so more situations here. So for an individual that is a home care provider for an individual with intellectual disabilities and receives a stipend for this difficulty of care support, will this be considered income through the unemployment process?
I'm not clear about who's receiving the stipend, the aide who's assisting.
That's a great question.
And maybe this person might want to give a call to our hotline or check on the website to see, or perhaps they could write in again and clarify the question.
Okay, it sounds like there is a stipend for difficulty of care support, and we're not sure if it's getting paid to the home care provider or to the individual with intellectual disabilities. And that would change perhaps the answer about whether the home care provider could get unemployment income or unemployment insurance, unemployment benefits if the home care providing, if that didn't continue going on for some reason. Okay, so that person should probably get in touch with us. Okay, so more information about proof of prior employment, proof of prior work. What do you need as an independent contractor? And a second piece of this question, what if you reside in Vermont but have clients outside of the state? So that's someone that is self-employed as an independent contractor. How do they prove their income? What kinds of things might be required? And what if they have clients that are not in Vermont for their work?
So I would say that's a complicated question with a lot of different pieces. Let's see. The first piece is going to be, I think typically the department is going to look for tax returns to prove prior income. If a person doesn't have tax returns, then I don't know what the department is going to do. It may be that a person could opt to choose the minimum amount of state unemployment, and then not have to present as much proof of income. I'm not sure that the state has actually worked that out just yet. I haven't had a chance to look into the application enough that just went live last night to see what is being required. I know that the first and the preference would be to just upload a tax return from last year, and whatever income that shows would be used to calculate the benefit. As far as out-of-state clients go, as I understand it, if somebody does work out of state, they and reside in Vermont, they can still apply that out of state earned income would still be used to calculate the benefit for the state of Vermont's unemployment compensation. And that's the key piece here. You want maximum income to generate the maximum benefit amount. So that out of state earned income would be factored into the benefit equation.
Got it. Thanks, Kelly. Okay, so a question here more about the tax side of things. So does the extra $600 get taxed? And actually just sort of generally, when you're getting unemployment benefits, is that money taxed? And then this follow-up piece, if not, if the $600 isn't taxed, will a person receiving it be required to pay more taxes on it when they file their taxes next year?
So generally, normally unemployment benefits are taxable. Yes, it's all taxable income. Usually a person's, when they get their benefit, the tax is withheld. So that would be true for the state portion. They withhold the taxes usually, and I'm not sure actually whether the taxes will be automatically withheld from the federal portion or not. It will be taxable income, however, so if it's not automatically withheld, the taxes will eventually have to be paid on that.
Got it. Okay, and we have a question here that says, this is a question from Facebook. I got a monetary determination that said I'm entitled to $0 from unemployment. I appealed by email, but I haven't heard anything back. I've been refiling my claim every week. And yesterday I got an email about this pandemic unemployment, the PUA, and I signed up for that, but I'm worried and I won't have, and then it cuts off and I can't click see more. So there's a tech issue here, but an issue around what happens if someone's gotten that determination, it says you get $0.
Right.
And then they've been still trying to figure that out.
And I think that's been very common. I've heard a lot of people calling about that. And it sounds like
this person might be self-employed normally if they're filling out that application for the
right. And it also sounds like everything is working for this person, believe it or not. So they've applied to the traditional unemployment program, and the zero benefit amount coming back is correct. That is how the normal rules do work. But then they got the email saying that they should apply for the PUA, which is great. It's great that they have been continuing to file their weekly claims reports, because that will be important. But now I'm thinking this person should see things in the next day or two literally snowball in their favor, because this sounds like a person who, as a self-employed person, will be eligible for the PUA. Now that that program is live, all of the information they previously inputted should shift over, and hopefully they will start to see some benefits being paid.
Got it. Thank you, Kelly. And let's see, another question here. I have clients who are unemployed and they're single parents of school-aged children, but are able to work, but did not qualify for unemployment prior to the pandemic. With these changes in effect, Will they now qualify for these benefits? Many of them are struggling to gain income with a lack of childcare and the lack of being able to interview for jobs during social distancing.
Hmm.
So, unemployed single parents of school aged children able to work but couldn't get unemployment before.
And now school's
Now
closed, and
school's
so that's a
closed.
change.
So we were talking about a bunch of factors before. Would this answer depend on what their work history has been, like how much they have been able to get income in the past
Yes, and
year or
so it,
two?
it it would depend why they were initially. I think the question started that they were initially denied, or that they were previously not eligible for unemployment. Um, and so it would depend in part on the reasons for that. But if it was only because they weren't able to work because they needed to stay home with a child, that has changed, because that's no longer a disqualification if you have to be home with a child who can't be in school. So those folks, I don't see why they shouldn't apply again, try again now, and see if in fact they would qualify.
Thanks, Kelly. That makes
Mhm.
sense. Okay, so another question here. Oh, this is the question that's actually clarifying the previous one. So, what about an aide who's getting the aide? So, an aide is providing support to someone with a disability, and they're getting a stipend for taking care of the person with the disability. Um, I guess the implication is that the stipend is going away,
Okay,
perhaps. And
yes.
would they perhaps qualify for unemployment? Should they apply to see if they
Sure.
qualify?
I think there'd be no harm in applying. I really don't see any harm if somebody has lost any income um, due to the virus or orders that are in place because of the virus. I think they should apply. And I think it doesn't matter if it was just a little bit of money. It doesn't matter if it was just, a few hours of work. If it's a loss of income to you that can be attributed to the virus or to orders in place because of the virus, you should apply.
Got it. Okay. And it sounds like there might be a piece there where the person's wondering if it's a stipend or like maybe it depends on in a little bit way, what kind of income it is. And maybe we don't know if it's a stipend or if it's someone's getting a W-2 or someone's getting
Hmm.
like a work study or a scholarship or a fellowship, or there's all these different ways people get income that isn't the traditional whether you're working for a business or you're
Hmm.
self-employed.
Hmm.
So do we know anything about sort of what kinds of like how those different things are counted or if it's a stipend
Right.
versus
And I'm not aware, I don't really know of differences in how those terms are used. I mean, the way I'm aware of it being discussed in terms of the pandemic, it's just income that is lost. It's not necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to be a certain kind of income. Although I should say that there may be income, there may be streams of income out there that would not be covered if they're lost due to the virus. But at this point, any income earned from work should be that is lost due to the virus should be compensable with unemployment compensation.
great. Okay. So more questions along the same lines here. Um, do you know if someone who is partially furloughed because of COVID and has received partial unemployment, is that person eligible for the additional $600 per week? And if so, and this hasn't been received, what are the next steps? Or is this a problem that the Department of Labor is working to resolve? So a couple
That's
pieces there in that question.
Yeah, yeah, and an excellent question. I've talked to a few people actually that I think have this same issue. First piece is that yes, if you qualify for any kind of unemployment compensation, as long as you qualify for or are eligible for at least $1 of state unemployment compensation, then you are eligible for the additional $600 a week. So partial unemployment, pandemic unemployment assistance, traditional unemployment, as long as you qualify for one of those programs, you will get the additional $600 a week as well.
Got it.
And then there was another piece to that question that I've forgotten.
Yeah, it's what if you know that you qualify, so you've heard our answer right now, but you're
Okay,
still not getting it. What
still
do you
not
do
getting
then?
it. That's the piece that I'm actually not sure about, and I am hoping that it has to do with the lack of people at the Department of Labor, and that again, in the next few days, it's going to just catch up and people will see the additional benefit amount. I'm not sure why people, I heard yesterday from a client who said she was getting the state portion, but yet hadn't received the $600 federal. I don't know why that is happening, and I'm hoping that the department's going to catch up with those folks quickly. And the commissioner has said many times, though, that people should feel comfortable that they will get all of the retroactive benefits they are entitled to. It may take a little while, but it will come to them. So, folks should know that the department will catch up with them eventually. So I may not help today to hear that, but it will come.
Got it. And it sounds like it's something maybe we can do some more research on if someone does call us with that issue.
Exactly.
Or check out our webpage to see if we've updated it with that information. Okay, so a couple more questions here. We have answered over 30 questions, which is fantastic, Kelli. So if you are not eligible for traditional employment, but you do qualify for this pandemic unemployment assistance, this special kind for folks that are self-employed or gig workers or things like that, does the $600 go with that benefit too?
Yes, it does. Mm-hmm.
Great.
So yes, it's the $600 is the certain part of that benefit. There's some question yet about how the benefit amount will be determined, particularly for folks like we were just talking about who didn't file taxes last year or might have trouble proving what their income was. And so that remains to be seen how that will be sorted out.
Got it. Okay, a couple more questions here. So this is a question. It says, how can agencies assist with individuals with developmental disabilities with their filing? Could an agency become an authorized representative to assist individuals with their online filing by filing on their behalf?
I'm not even sure that that's necessary for the Department of Labor. I think that the department allows somebody to have assistance in filing their claims. I don't think it has to be quite as formal as the Social Security standard that people might be used to of having an actual appointed representative. However, I have not actually had a client who has needed assistance. So I'm not certain. And there, I believe on the weekly certification forms, especially, a claimant does have to themselves certify the truth of what is in the statement. So there might be some issue there. I would recommend, unfortunately, that they get in touch with the Department of Labor about that. If someone is filing a claim on behalf of someone who can't sit with them and certify while that is being done, I'm not sure how that would happen. But I don't believe there is a formal requirement like there is for Social Security that there be an appointment of rep form or anything like that on file.
Got it. Okay, so it sounds like normally when there's not a pandemic, the Department of Labor would assume that the individual who needs that employment would just be there in person with the person helping them. They could
Right.
fill out the application together, call together, fill out the claim together. But now with the pandemic and with social distancing and not being able to provide as many in-person services, there's more of an open question. So folks
Right.
can call the Department of Labor and get in touch with them, maybe ask this question to them directly during one of their town halls, or they could give us a call or check our webpage. We can do some more research into this because that is an issue we're running into with a lot of benefits. Really, we had the same questions come up in last week's town hall around people that needed to do some work in order to get their stimulus check. People were sort of figuring out, well, what if they don't have access to a computer, and all of this is now computer based. Okay, so this is the same question. It says, hoping you have an answer to the question posted earlier about how agencies can help someone with a developmental disability with filing for benefits. Can they become an authorized representative? So that authorized representative language, I know that happens with Medicaid too. Sometimes there's an extra page on the application when you fill out, yes, this person is helping me. Yes, I want them to be someone that you have permission to talk to. Do we know whether the unemployment application has that kind of page or question included, or maybe we're not sure?
I'm not sure. To be honest, I haven't actually filled out an application myself, so I'm not sure. I would guess though that there would be some provision. As you mentioned, I think normally the expectation is that a person who needs assistance would have a worker or someone who could be with them, physically helping them to file claims. And as you
Mhm.
say, that's more difficult these days.
Well, and normally you can go in person to the Department of
Right.
Labor. Maybe I'm wrong. So it sounds like the Department of Labor will have to accommodate Vermonters
I'm sure
who've
that
been
they will figure,
working.
yes. Mhm.
But we just need to figure out exactly how that will happen. So this person saying,
Exactly.
hoping you have an answer. Unfortunately, we don't have an answer quite yet, but we are getting there.
Yes. And
So definitely
and
get
that
in
is something we
touch.
could put up on our website as soon as we find out more information about that.
Perfect. Yes. Thank you for raising that question. Okay. So here's a question from our Facebook attendees. This person says, I'm worried that I won't have my 2019 taxes filed in 21 days. I also can't be sure about how much I made in 2019. So I guessed as much as I could. Am I going to get in trouble? Will my appeal be heard? Will I be entitled to back compensation? I lost my job at the end of March. So this person lost job at the end of March. Sounds like probably filed for unemployment and is now trying to provide documentation of
Mhm.
their 2019 income. And they're worried they won't be able to get their taxes filed in time to provide documentation. And to make matters worse, they sort of had to guess on the application when they filed it, and now they're worried that what if they were a little bit wrong? Would they get
Mm.
in trouble?
I would say that as long as they had a good faith reason for their guesses and made a reasonable guess, I don't see how that could get anybody into trouble. I especially right now, I think there's a real understanding that it's very difficult times for everyone right now for finding forms, getting forms, sending information, and for many reasons. There's just a tremendous amount of stress on folks right now, and I think everyone understands that. If somebody made an educated guess based on reasonable guesses, um, I don't see any reason why that would come back to haunt you. If you made a mistake, you made a mistake. It happens, and if the mistake results in an overpayment of benefits, there could be a situation where some of those benefits may have to be paid back at some point.
Mhm.
But as far as someone being prosecuted or getting into trouble for, I mean, unless it was a really outrageous claim or somebody is really trying to get more money than they should, I don't see any problem with that. A reasonable guess should be fine.
Got it. And so if someone's looking for more information about how to get their taxes filed in the next couple of weeks, they can also check our website, that www.vtlawhelp.org. I mentioned at the beginning that civil law and our civil legal aid, and the information on that website, that's a joint project between Legal Services Vermont and Vermont Legal Aid, covers things like taxes. So that's something we definitely want to help people with. And let's see, this person here is just sort of in a similar situation. I guessed the amount for my claim question. I'm in a very similar boat, plus my employment change between my W-2 to a 1099 for this calendar year. So I don't know what proof I can submit. So it sounds like this person used to be getting a W-2 and is now getting a 1099, and they're not really sure how to provide documentation. And maybe you have a quick answer to this, but I also want to just reaffirm that our webpage has more information. That's www.vtlawhelp.org. And if we're not able to get the detailed answer that you need today, if you're over 60, definitely set up a 20-minute phone call to get some personalized legal advice. The number for that is 802-318-4169. That legal clinic is on April 29th. And generally, if you're not able to find the answer on our webpage, we are happy to help you if you give us a call at 1-800-889-2047. Vermont Legal Aid and Legal Services Vermont is working really hard to provide this legal advice to folks that need this detailed information to be able to get these benefits that they qualify for. So now that I've given that disclaimer, Kelli, is there a really quick answer to what if do you just give it all to them, or how do you know
You
what to
know,
tell them?
I was going to say that just work with the Department of Labor. If they will ask you for what kind of proof that they need, and as long as you're, providing honest information, honest answers, I don't see that there'll be any problem at all. And the department will work out how to determine a benefit amount for folks who just have no proof of what their income was. There is a minimum benefit amount. So hopefully that would be an option at some point, to just elect the minimum benefit amount and then not have to worry about this lack of income information.
Great. So Kelli, we did our 30-minute town hall, then we did 30 more minutes of questions. We've answered over 30 questions, and this is fantastic. And I want to thank everyone who's watching right now on Thursday morning, and I want to thank everyone who's watching this in the future and sharing this with friends and family members that need this. And Kelli, thank you so much for your expertise, and thank you everyone for your questions. And thank you to Legal Services Vermont and all of Legal Aid for all of the background information that needs to make this happen. So thank you all. Hopefully we'll see you next week for the next town hall at 10 a.m. The topic of that one is health insurance and Medicaid. We'll have the Office of the Healthcare Advocate there to answer questions. So thank you again, Kelli.
Thank you. And if I could just add one more piece for folks as a parting word, if you're in doubt, if you wonder, if you think you're qualified or eligible, go ahead and apply. And please don't let your employer decide for you whether or not you're eligible. The employers do not decide, the state decides. So even if your employer is telling you, don't bother, and you think you are eligible, go ahead and apply. So, and good luck everyone, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you.